The very first MacBooks came to be in January of 2006 when Apple kicked off their transition to Intel away from PowerPC. In the 15 years that have followed, there have been many highs and lows, but today we are going to be looking at what I think is literally the worst MacBook that you can buy right now. So get subscribed and let's jump into this. The Mac has always been a powerful tool because of its software, and today's video sponsor SetApp understands that better than anyone. SetApp curates fantastic paid apps and brings them under one roof and one subscription price. SetApp focuses on giving you access to apps, not as a means of having as many things installed as possible, but to accomplish the tasks you want to get done. Whether you're recovering files after accidentally reformatting your SD card, retrieving something you copied to your clipboard a month ago, reducing data consumption when on a mobile hotspot, making GIFs, gathering meetings across different communication tools, or literally thousands of other tasks, SetApp has tools that can help you accomplish your goals, all bundled into this convenient package. The best part about SetApp is you don't have to spend hours hunting through forum posts looking for the best app, making an account for it, setting up billing, managing a password. You can simply find tools by task or category, and everything is included in the $9.99 monthly subscription price. There are hundreds of useful standalone apps, tools, and productivity boosters designed to make your day just a little bit easier. You can try out SetApp today by clicking on the link in the description below to supercharge your Mac experience. And now, back to the video. So which MacBook is it? Which one is so bad that I had to make an entire video telling you not to buy it? To be quite honest, there's a long list of contenders to choose from. There's the infamous 2007 and 2008 15-inch MacBook Pros that suffered from crippling graphics card failure, the 2011 MacBook Pros that suffered from crippling graphics card failure, and the 2012 Retina MacBook Pro that suffered from crippling graphics card failure.
Innovation in every dimension.
I think I'm picking up on a bit of a trend there. Yeah, in the first 6 years of the MacBook Pro's existence, nearly every 15-inch model had some sort of crippling graphics card failure. There's also other options like the 12-inch Retina MacBook, which I'm sure many of you thought about. That one has a really long list of issues. It has the worst and most failure-prone version of the butterfly keyboard. The screen suffers from delamination. It has horrible overheating and thermal throttling issues. The USB-C port fails quite frequently. So does the SSD, which renders the machine basically useless. And even complete CPU failure that leads to a completely dead unit is fairly common on those things. So yeah, definitely not a great track record for the 2015 12-inch MacBook.
There it goes.
But still, it does not qualify for the top, or I guess bottom, spot. So what does? Well, this. This is a late 2016 15-inch MacBook Pro, the first of the current design generation that has been controversial since the moment of its inception in October 2016. Now, I'm not going to beat a dead horse here. There were three things that people complained about right from the very start. No ports, bad. Long screen, bad. Keyboard, bad. And yeah, okay, those were fair then. Now, personally, I don't really give a crap about the touch bar. And yeah, the butterfly keyboard is predictably awful, and one of the reasons why this particular machine is in the top spot, which I'll expand upon later, but I think the decision to go to USB-C only has actually held up pretty well. It's a classic and predictable case of Apple makes the decision to push a technology before people are ready, so they're mad at first, but within a few years it becomes acceptable. This has happened time and time again, and it dates all the way back to Steve Jobs' return to Apple in 1997. In 1998, the iconic iMac that basically saved Apple did away with the floppy disk drive, and a lot of people were really mad about that. And then about 10 years later, in 2008, Apple did it again. The DVD drive disappeared from the MacBook Air and then slowly from everything else. And then, of course, there's stuff like the headphone jack on the iPhone. All of these were really big I guess, scandals when they happened, but now honestly aren't that big of a deal. On the other hand though, I do get why people want more ports than what we currently have, and it seems Apple is on your side there. There are rumors for months and months now that HDMI and the SD card reader are coming back to this new generation of MacBook Pro that we're expecting later this year or next year, but weirdly enough, people have been getting, like, mad about that. Like, people are actively mad that the SD card reader is coming back. Why? I'm just imagining what's going on in the head of these people.
No, please, I beg of you.
Do it! Do it!
I have a family.
I don't care! Plug it in!
I don't even have a camera.
You fool! You absolute fool. Anyway, where were we? Oh yes, the ports. Not really that big an issue anymore, and honestly the touch bar is kind of like a benign abscess at this point. It doesn't really contribute anything, but it's not trying to kill you. But the keyboard has exacted its evil plan with cunning and vengeance. See, the 2016 MacBook Pros are coming up on 5 years old right now, which means that they have all aged out of Apple's butterfly keyboard replacement program. When these things first came out, the keyboard was annoying, but recently it has become unacceptable because of its high rates of failure. And now that you can't even get it fixed, that should scare you away from one of these all on its own. Now, if you're an eagle-eyed viewer, you may have noticed that this isn't actually a 2016 15-inch MacBook Pro. It's a 2019. You can tell by the option key. So why am I talking about 2016 while showing you a 2019? Well, the reason that I have a 2019 15-inch is because of that keyboard replacement program. I had 4 keyboard replacements on my 2016 MacBook Pro, and on that 4th one, they just gave me a brand new MacBook Pro because it was too problematic. But you can't do that anymore. If you buy a 2016 MacBook Pro and the keyboard fails and you don't want to pay Apple to do it, the cheapest option that you have is about $200 to $250 to buy a used top case and completely disassemble and reassemble the MacBook Pro into it. And that doesn't even solve your problem. It's only a temporary fix because the keyboard could just as easily fail again. That is not fun, and it's not a repair or an issue that you want to have looming over your head, particularly if you're using it as a primary device. And the problem is, the 2016, and frankly the 2017 MacBook Pros as well, represent a huge chunk of the market. If you look at something like the 12-inch MacBook, it's not really a default choice. There are a billion different things that you can buy instead of that. You could go for a 13-inch Retina that would cost the same amount, be newer, be much more powerful, and more reliable. So you would obviously go ahead and buy that. But if you want a recent MacBook Pro for under $1,000, it's hard to avoid 2016 and 2017 15-inch MacBook Pros. There's not a ton of options out there. The prices for these 2016 and 2017 MacBooks are simply unjustifiable. The absolute cheapest you can find them for is about $600 nowadays. But at that point, they're so beat up, it's not even worth it. Discolored LCDs, stuck keyboards, worn aluminum, dying batteries, and blown out speakers are the norm at that price point. For a nice one, you'd have to pony up around $800 or $900 of your crisp US dollars, and even then, you'd be getting a bum deal. One stuck spacebar and you're at $200 extra and an afternoon, not to mention the fact that these things are basically the same performance-wise as a mid-2015 15-inch. Putting it at about half that offered by a measly M1 MacBook Air. Seriously, these quad-core i7 Intel chips from just a few years ago have not aged well, particularly compared to M1. To illustrate my point, here is a brief and really rather tragic comparison of some benchmarks of these devices. Personally, if I'm going to be getting as little as half the performance of the M1, Ideally, I'd like to be paying half the price, or at least get other features to sweeten the deal. But no, that is not the case here. The battery is worse, the keyboard is worse, the thermals are worse, the fan noise is worse. The only benefits that you get with this MacBook Pro are 2 extra ports, a larger display, and most likely a larger SSD. But at what cost? I would gladly spend the extra on a MacBook Air any day of the week. I'm sorry, I know a number of you viewers will be watching this on a 2016 or 2017 MacBook Pro, and I'm sure some of you will find your machine perfectly usable. But if I were to buy one right now, I wouldn't spend over like $450 on a well-spec'd one, and even that is pushing it because you're just putting up with so many issues. And yet, if you scroll through the sold page on eBay, people are spending $700–800 on these things. And frankly, I can't understand why. I think the only reason people are buying these is because they don't know any better. They see, oh, it's a little bit less than a MacBook Air, but I'm getting a larger display, and maybe that's the only factor. I seriously think that Apple would do very well if they made a 15-inch MacBook Air. Like literally M1, same design, same everything, but just larger. People would absolutely buy that. I know a decent number of people that bought 15-inch or 16-inch MacBook Pros specifically because larger screen space and more screen real estate was a useful factor to them. But you end up paying for all of the extra stuff that people don't even need. If a 13-inch MacBook is too small for your needs, your hands are tied right now. A 16-inch, as I talked about in a recent video, isn't really a super compelling value at the prices they are right now, and these 2016 and 17 models, even though they're under $1,000, are absolutely not worth the hassle. It's a tough spot that we're in right now. People really need larger screened MacBooks, and none of them are compelling right now. I mean, think about it logically. If I'm going to buy a new MacBook Pro and the M1 doesn't quite cut it, maybe I need more Thunderbolt ports or a larger display, I'm not going to go out and buy a brand new 16-inch because it's way too expensive, so I'm going to go on eBay and buy a used one. That demand keeps the prices up until the new 16-inch comes, and then people are going to be selling those things like crazy and moving over to the new platform. So yeah, it's a trickle-down effect. Even if you don't care about Apple Silicon, the lower-priced older MacBooks are still suffering because of the offset demand where people don't have anywhere else to go. That being said, even though we're in a tough spot, absolutely under no circumstances should you buy a 2016 or 2017, or if we're being honest, 2018 or 2019, 15 or 16-inch MacBook. Just completely avoid this design generation at all costs, but especially the 2016 models. If you need a 15-inch MacBook right now to tide yourself over, just buy a mid-2015. They're not completely outrageously priced, and they hold their value pretty well. So in the end, that's probably the best way to go if you're still waiting for one of these new M1X devices. Or just go for M1. Honestly, I think you might be surprised at how usable it would be, even if you think you might need something a little bit more. So let me know in the comments below, what do you think? Is there a way that you could maybe justify a 2016 MacBook Pro? I'm going to go out on a limb and say that there's probably not, but I'm interested to see if anyone has any good ideas. And with that, I will see you guys in the next video.